It's not. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's getting better. Right, it's got help. You know, I agree. And you know, there's we're good for now. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, it's good. The Verrazano line, you know, the Verrazano line. So we're really good back. Have a little bit of business to do, hopefully get a new strategic conversation tonight. First, Steve, would you like to go ahead? Yes, thank you, Trustee Jackson. As I've been kind of touching base with you on our part-time program and the revolving door has kind of become, I have come to you tonight with a couple resignations. We have it in our policy that if you are part-time and you get a full-time job someplace, which is their ultimate goal, obviously, we don't allow you to work because if you get hurt in your part-time job, it could interfere with your full-time job. And you know, if you get hurt long enough, you could be let go to your full-time job. So resolution 25-72901 is the resignation of Gavin Palvo. He's taken a full-time job at Delaware Fire. When he resigned, he asked that hopefully if he gets through probation, he'd like to come back as part-time if we still have a position.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
02 is resignation of Anna Fagan. She's working full-time at Morrow County EMS. She also expressed the same tone when she left. She was sorry she had to, but she would like to come back. We have an opening where she gets her probationary period done at Morrow.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
And those two people are both what we call permanent part-time spots. So we would like to fill one of those. We'd like to hire with 03 Charles Borden. Charles has worked part-time, or actually was full-time at Clinton Township. He left to go west for a while, became a battalion chief out there, has come back here. He brings a lot to the table. He's an instructor. He's an experienced firefighter and paramedic. So we'd like to add him on. He'll be a permanent part-time spot right now. And he will be starting on the 6th if you guys approve it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, we had noticed a hearing for approval of the amendment to zoning articles of the Harlem Township zoning code for 22, the sign regulations. That is application HTZC 25-07. And it is commission members met on July 7th and
We received the packet the 16th of July. It was advertised in our Facebook and online, and all the methods we used to notice it. That was done July 17th. On the website, the calendar, and both Facebook pages, community sign and back door was noticed. It was recommended approval by the Harlem Township Zoning Commission, and the regional made some comments. They inserted a definition of sign, removed the titles and references to billboard. Real estate sign section was simplified and moves home occupation signs, which will be handled within specific districts. Language requiring limitations on political signs are removed. New standards related to residential subdivision identification signs, the entry features, and has classification of ground-mounted signs for industrial, commercial, and office signs. Clarification of wall-mounted signs for industrial, commercial, and office signs. Definition of temporary signs to provide for larger real estate signs that are typically installed as part of developments. Removal of signs requiring conditional use permit. This is a significant change since most subdivision entry signs are currently going to the township BZA for general standards such as a 32 square feet maximum, 12-foot height, and 25 foot from the right of way. Removal of large section of text 2206 and repeated in 2208. Related to temporary and permanent signs related to roads, streets, CADs, structures under construction. Such regulations were deemed unnecessary as they are handled separately, either by the building regulations or by the county engineer subdivision engineering and construction process. Additionally, CADs may not have unique names as identified in the subdivision regulations and map department's addressing process. Additional clarifications within were prohibited sign section and minor changes to the general regulations of that. The regional had been working with the zoning commission on this for several meetings and had no issues with what was proposed. Regional recommended approval of the text of the amendments, the Harlem Township zoning resolution. And that's where we are now. We've got the hearing. We're open for discussion. Did you gentlemen have a chance to look at the packet?
Yes.
Do you see any issues?
Well, I think the big difference is there's a big section from section 22.07 that changed from the original to the final.
Yeah, it disappeared.
It's not identified in the summary that was provided to us, but quite a few different items were removed into the final. So I'm not sure, Mike or otherwise, if anybody has any information on that, like if that was accidental or intentional on removing some of those.
Somebody here, they removed a whole section of that because when they changed the way that they set up those signs where it was meant to go to the BZA, that whole section was kind of pertaining to that stuff. And when they took that wording out of there, where it just comes straight to the zoning office and the decisions are made there, that wording was obsolete, really. You remember that?
Yeah.
Isn't that about, isn't that?
Yeah, and regional planning said that's how a lot of townships are doing it now, going right with the zoning director rather than BCA.
So using one of the line items just as an example, line item 22.07, line item E, no sign shall be attached or otherwise applied to any fence. Where does that, if that's stricken, where is that same enforcement taken up?
That was taken out, but I think we talked about that. Dave, did you have any thoughts on that, or do you want me to address that?
My thought is we've allowed signs at the park, and I kind of went with that, like all community parks have those type things, sponsorships and so forth. But to have it to the general township could be a problem.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about fences, we don't want to get something in here that has like acres of chain link fence and then we cover the chain link fences with signs. So we don't want that. So I think it needs to be restricted down to either a certain size sign, something that's fair, because we do have some businesses in the township that have, smaller signs on their chain link fences, which identifies their business because they're either not close to the road or they're behind fences or some kind of barrier. But I think those are appropriate, whereas other signs, if we would just be like I said, somebody could have a large amount of fencing and just cover this, it with signs, that wouldn't be something we'd be looking for. But a lot of that gets addressed back through me or the zoning department, whatever you want to call it, because it's going to be, there's wording in there that says it's subject to the conditions surrounding the surrounding homes, the surrounding environment, and that decision is made on my side. And if then somebody's got a problem with that, then they go to the BZA to discuss my decision.
Well, and that's essentially my thought of it too, right? Is because, I mean, good examples across the street where that fence is around the old concrete plant. I mean, that won't be there forever. But, it's important to have the HTH signs up there right now to talk about, the weekly stuff that we have during the summer. But I guess my concern, and it might be much ado about nothing, but if we totally strike it from what we have established, does that turn into someday down the road, that entire chain link fence is covered with different kinds of signage for different kinds of things?
Yeah, and I agree with that part. I think the fences, we ought to have some kind of limitation on the amount of signs you can have it or the size of signs you can have on it. But yeah, like I said, the majority of it's going to come, it's just not running through the BZA, it's just going to run through the zoning office. And it won't bog the BZA down and it won't be.
Yeah.
Jackson.
There's Mike.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't see
Go ahead,
you.
Mike.
There was extensive discussion about that during the last hearing. And because of other provisions within the sign regulations, we made the decision that it was unnecessary to have that continue into it because the other regulations would apply and zoning inspector could issue a citation if someone puts up a sign that doesn't meet the other regulations.
Or better yet, they have to come in for the signs
Yeah,
anyway,
they may
get a
come in and
permit.
request a permit.
That's when we would discuss, we wouldn't just let them put the sign up and then go out and slap a violation on them. That's not right. We don't want that. But we would discuss it then.
Does this work a little bit like the conditional uses? In other words, what I'm saying is on the conditional use in our book, if it's not a condition, it's not allowed. So how does this fit that clause? It's not addressed in the book, not allowed.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that wording is on the end there, if they put that in there. I know we talked about that as far as where it says anything that's not otherwise specified in the article was not allowed.
Yeah,
I think some of that is in there, but I think the biggest part of it is that it's going to be up to the discretion of the zoning office
right.
to decide if those fences or if that, whatever it is, doesn't have to be fences. Anything that's not in there is allowed or not. And the option, like I said, if it's something that comes in, I'd say, no, we can't do that. We can't do this. It doesn't fit. They do have the option to appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Do you feel comfortable the way it is now, or do you think it needs to have a square footage restriction, or just leave it right? You're the guy sitting in the office.
Well, I tell you what, it's as opposed to having to push this back anymore, and I don't really want to do that because we need this sign regulation because it's taking a lot of the work off the BZA. I would rather that we go ahead and if you guys approve it, then we'll deal with it from there. If it becomes an issue, because anytime I've come across anything that's hindering what we should be able to do or what the residents should be able to do, I brought it to the zoning commission and they're open, we get it changed. So if it's something that looks like it needs change, we can open it back up and discuss that at a later date. So
Okay,
I think right now I don't have anybody knocking my doors down for signs up on fences and I don't see a lot of them out there. And a
right.
lot of signs that you talked about is addressed by, certain events, you're allowed to have signs up, those don't have to have signs on them. So I think a lot of it's okay in that respect. I think what we're thinking about is more down the road in the future, if we start getting some businesses in here. If we don't have right now, we probably won't see till we get any infrastructure in here.
Right.
So we have time to adjust to that.
Okay. Fair enough. Gentlemen,
John, you got anything? I'm good.
No, so you withdrew timeframes around political signs.
That was not me, but that
But-
was, yes.
Yeah, in general.
The prosecutor's office said that anything that's a political sign, that's dealing with free speech. There's been court cases lost on that. Take it out of the zoning.
And but we don't want to see political signs in December. And so how are we going to deal with that? Or we're,
Nothing you can touch.
okay,
Political sign. I mean, we have people, we do have them in the township right now that are up year
I
round.
know.
So let's be
I'm
honest.
thinking of the plethora of signs that we'll see in October.
Yeah.
That then hopefully we'll all be good citizens and remove whatever signage we put all over the township.
Yeah.
After the election.
And we keep them out of our right of ways. I mean, we keep them out, the maintenance department keeps them out of the right of ways.
Right.
I mean, if it gets to be anything extreme, I'm sure we'll be able to deal with it. I've not had any problem with any of the residents when you talk to them being reasonable about things, so.
Okay. A motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution -004.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been moved and seconded. Have a roll call vote, please.
Jackson,
Aye.
Holiday,
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. And now we can go into our strategic discussion. Holly?
Strategic plan, you want to start with the sewer?
You got her a mic. Yeah.
John, turn your mic on, please.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to make you.
Is this better? Can you hear me better?
I think it's more for people online.
Online, okay, got you.
I'm happy to provide a sewer update if that will be helpful.
I think that's helpful going into this, and then I'll take it from there.
Okay, so today we had a meeting again with Black and Veatch and with Delaware Sewer up in the county. And Holly and I both represented the township. In addition, Dana McDaniel was there from the Economic Office in Delaware County. Again, Black and Veatch has been commissioned with the design phase of this first line of sewer. And for these first several months, they are using a scoring metric to look at 6 different routes for the initial sewer line. And recall that this is commencing at the Columbus, word for it,
Trunk line.
trunk line. Thank you, Holly. That is due to be finished sometime in 26. And then the question is, where does that run from there and where does that end? And right now they're looking at these 6 versions and they're scoring them. Initially, there was a hard look at going north up Harlem Road. They looked at everything from an open cut sewer that would basically tear Harlem Road apart to micro tunneling. The route as it gets up Harlem Road to about the Yeager property either continues north up Harlem or then cuts east to the back of the Yeager property and then north up the power line right of way, running as far north as Duncan Run near Gorsuch. For the last couple of meetings, after input from large landowners, they've taken a serious look at an eastern run. So this line would run up to the Yeager property, cut east across the bottom of that property, take a very small jog north, and then run east, proposed all the way to State Route 605. Keep in mind that none of these routes are proposed long-term wish kind of. This is what we would do if we had unlimited resources and we could make this occur. Recognize that the county will probably only pay for so much of this, and then a great deal of it will be developer driven. Right now, there's, I think, serious consideration of the eastern route because that eastern route provides most access to what are developable sites in the township. That is sites that are already owned by developers that run across that line north of Fancher Road between Harlem to Miller Paul and then on to State Route 605. To microtunnel that route is about $6,600 a foot. That, just to help you put some dollars to this, to get to the first corner of the Jaeger property would be $20 million. To get to the east corner of the Jaeger property would be 32 million. To get to Miller Paul would be 60, and to get to State Route 605 would be 80. And so that provides you some perspective on the cost of putting in this infrastructure. When this conversation began, we were looking at an open cut run just up to the corner of the Jaeger property for about $7.5 million. Recognizing quickly that microtunneling would be more less intrusive into residents' lives. That cost doubled, and now it's even gone about $5 million beyond that. So the commissioners of the county are going to have to wrestle with these numbers, and the township is going to have to wrestle with these numbers. Another factor that comes into play here is conversations with the city of New Albany, and the recognition that with the development that's taking place to our east, to include not only Intel, which we all recognize has slowed down considerably, but also with recent announcements in the life science industries. And so you're looking at pharmaceutical companies that are coming to Central Ohio with great intentionality right now. And so One Columbus is very bullish on what's happening to our east in the life sciences. And New Albany, as they consider this, is looking at the need to move affluent with greater capacity. There is, in the ultimate plan, $1 billion sewer that would ultimately serve to our east. No one wants to build that in the near term. So what can we do between now and then, this is New Albany speaking, to deal with the access capacity that we might have? Well, with the Columbus trunk line, there's the possibility that that becomes an option to serve in the interim their needs. That means it's very important for us to have this conversation with the city of New Albany, city of Columbus, Harlem Township, because when we're talking about dollars that are as significant as the ones we're talking about, then entities, municipalities that have resources become very important in the conversation. Another aspect that we need to consider is that as we look at development across the southern tier, are there either commercial or light industrial options that might provide an economic benefit to the township in the nearer term that we should consider? And so these are this is where the conversation is today. We've asked Delaware came out of the meeting today and said, hey, let's have a conversation with Delaware and New Albany and Harlem Township in the near future and see where we are. We'll have a conversation tomorrow with Columbus, and no doubt this will be on the table. But just making residents aware of this ongoing dialogue. The goal still is for whatever portion of this phase 1 of the sewer to be completed by late 28. So that's still the calendar. It hasn't moved at this point. It's not to say that it won't move, but that's what we're aiming for currently. Holly?
Yep, that's great. Thank you. That helps me set the stage for what I'm going to present to you tonight. So first of all, I want to mention that I have Kelsey Miller here with me from my team, and also Molly Ridge is online. Molly has been with us throughout the history of working with Harlem Township. So I think it's very beneficial that she is on and can hear the feedback throughout this conversation as well. I wanted to start off, I'm going to share my screen here in a moment with the actual plan, but before I do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I've heard so far as this plan has been rolled out. So first of all, we have talked to a couple of different developers, a couple of different entities, just in our normal conversations of how is development, patterns going to work? How do you see it as a developer moving forward? So we released this draft plan. When we released it to the public, we gave them a copy as well. The New Albany company, Yarmer Steiner, both provided feedback to us that it was a positive report. It was a good report. Yarmer said it was a great job. So just wanted to let you know that we're hearing that from the development side. Also got a text message from Bob Singer, who also said it was very well written. So I just wanted to make sure that we're hearing what the community has been reaching out and telling us. And then also wanted to mention that I've had a conversation with Dana McDaniel, which you touched on as well, with some areas that we might need to improve. And I'm going to talk about those as we go forward. Have had some conversations with the steering committee chair, Maureen. I asked her to cancel our last meeting. We were supposed to meet within a week of the plan coming out. That was supposed to be our last meeting. And I asked to postpone it. So give them time to review it. Give us time to understand the sewer situation, because as soon as we put that draft out, the county said we're looking at this alternative of going east, which is not even represented in the draft that we gave you. So when we say it's evolving conditions, they truly are evolving. They are changing as we speak, as we move forward. So I wanted to flesh through some of that before meeting with the steering committee. So we postponed that meeting until August 14th. And I did ask the steering committee to provide any written comments that they had to us, if they could, prior to tonight's meeting, so I could share those with you. I also asked them to attend this meeting, and then we'll go through it as a full committee on August 14th.
Just to interrupt for a
Yes.
moment, on our agenda, we do have feedback from the Strategic
Okay.
Planning Committee. And
Great.
so if very open
Yep.
to their
Perfect.
verbal feedback as
Yep.
well.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you care if I summarize what I've heard so far?
Not at all.
I just,
But I think it'd be great for the steering committee to feel very open
Yes.
to talk directly to the trustees.
Yes, I agree. I just want to make sure they know that I've heard them too. So I want to make sure that that I'm reflecting what they've told me. So far I've heard, Dutch Holland, he's not listed as a steering committee member, so we're going to add that. That's my fault. We need to add 2 additional field trips that were conducted. Those need to go into the appendix. And then there's one existing label that is wrong, exhibit label that's wrong. So make sure those housekeeping items are taken care of. The one thing that we talked extensively about as a steering committee that I wanted you as trustees to hear is the term country suburban lifestyle. They are not so excited about that term. They prefer the term exurban. So I think we need to have a conversation around that, and you'll probably hear some of this from them. I also heard a little concern about the CRCD being proposed above Village Center. And then I think one of the biggest things that I've heard is the disconnect between what residents are seeing out their window today and what this plan is showing into the future, and that it's hard for residents to make that connection. And if there's anything that we can do to improve those dots in between. And so Molly is working on a one pager to help navigate through that. We continue to have, try to push that education out as we've continued to work with the township over the past several years. So again, trying to address that. So that's what I've heard from the steering committee. We have a couple members here, like you said, that can speak when we get to that part of the agenda. I've also talked to a couple of developers, wanted to let you know that when we talk about some of the changes to the overlay districts, there's two things that are really jumping out as developers. One is the township regulates density based on net developable acres. Everywhere else I work is gross acreage. It really does cut back on the way you can develop. So I think that we really need to take a look at that again and really figure out a way to massage that density calculation. The other thing is setbacks along the corridors. This was a conversation that we had in depth in the previous strategic planning committee. Was, having 200-foot setbacks to help protect the existing tree rows, or if there is no existing tree row, to help build up that woodland buffer. That is having some significant impact on some specific parcels. It may be okay for some parcels, but there are parcels where it is a detriment. So maybe being able to be a little bit more flexible. Developers can request a divergence from it, but maybe having some more flexible language in that. So I wanted to point that out. And then last but not least, before we go into the actual plan, my conversations with Dana and John, you alluded to this, is that we need to have more of a focus on a commercial economic base. We have a lot of residential in here, and I think we have a lot of residential in here for two reasons. One, we hear from residents that's what they would like to see. Two, there is a housing shortage too. So I think for both those reasons we have housing, but I hear, Dana, that we need to have more of an economic base to help create that fiscal sustainability of the township. He really wants us to focus on creating job-ready sites. And as John alluded to, he has mentioned to me also that having some of those economic based uses closer to the southwest quarter of the township, where the sewer will be coming, would be beneficial and create a better fiscally responsible township moving forward. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that is a little bit of a divergence from where we have been going. And so I want to be sure that everyone is thinking with that economic development lens as we walk through this as well. And then kind of tagging along with that, when we talk to New Albany, making sure that we are building in uses within these areas that allow for the life sciences, the pharmaceutical uses, the support industries for that, because that's where they see all of the leads coming out of One Columbus. And then having Dana talk to One Columbus to make sure that we are aligning what we have here with what is being demanded within the region, or not demanded, but sought in the region for economic development purposes. So that's what I'm hearing. What I plan to do here now is to share my screen. This is a long plan, so I don't intend that we are going to get through this tonight. But what I would like to do is at least talk through the structure of it with you, and then get through the introduction and evolving conditions section tonight. My hope is that by the time we meet again, that the economic development portion of the plan would be done, and that we could go over that at the next meeting. And then the meeting after that, talk about strategic recommendations. So I want to make sure that everyone's, in here and the strategic or the steering committee understands too, because I kind of went through a calendar with them know, we're not looking to adopt this tonight or tomorrow or the next month. We probably have some revisions that we need to do because of these evolving conditions that are going forward. So we have the economic development piece, we have the sewers that are key components to this plan that we need to have a final answer to before we move forward with any kind of final adoption. Also wanted to talk about process tonight. We can talk about where we've been when we get to that chapter, but talk about how we want to get public feedback in the final stretch of this plan adoption. So any questions before I start going through this?
So just for clarity and expectations, then the economic development portion won't probably be finished until early September. So the next meeting we would have to discuss this would be sometime in September. We would have a meeting after that in October to do our final look at your recommendations. So we wouldn't be looking to adopt this plan or have a vote on it until November, realistically. And at some point, they're seeking a public meeting with very deliberate public feedback in the process. Okay.
Yep.
That helps helps all of us understand and set our expectations. All
Very
right.
good.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So as we move through here, as I have mentioned in previous meetings, and as you see here, we have broken this down into 5 chapters. So chapter 1 is the introduction. Chapter 2 is the evolving conditions. 3 is process. 4 is the economic development plan. And 5 is the strategic recommendations. So my goal is to get through 1 through 3 tonight, as we mentioned, and then 4 would be in September and 5 would be in October. So with that, we have our involvement. We have our steering committee members. I want to thank our steering committee for everything they have done to provide feedback and to help walk us through this process. Chris and Maureen are here. I'm not sure if any of the other ones are here. And then also Dutch should be listed here. So we will add him to it.
This is Alice. I'm online.
Just to also note, Crowd Communications has helped us through the communication process and through the public meetings. So I want to make sure that they are acknowledged as we move through this as well. There will eventually be a letter from the trustees that we'll place here, outlining the process that we went through and the purpose and how this plan should be utilized moving forward. And then the introduction chapter is talking about where we've been, talking about why we have the strategic plan. When we have a comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2021, we have a quick strategy guide that was adopted in 2023, and all the events that have taken place from that November 21st comp plan being adopted all the way up to today. So making sure that there's a clear understanding of why that 2021 plan needed to be updated, talking about the announcement of Intel and talking about the evolution of the quick strategy guide, and then all of the events taking place through the creation of the strategic plan. It also talks about, setting the strategic priorities to set clear expectations for how decisions are made by the trustees, whether it's this board or future boards, that it sets the expectation so that consistent decisions can be made and aligned with the adopted strategies and policies within this document. So I'm not going to sit here and go through all of it line by line, but I will open it up to you guys right now if you have any questions on the where have we been section. Okay. Hearing none, then let's talk about the evolving conditions. We have provided updated demographics and all of the different income, population, numbers, household distribution, types of jobs and home values within Harlem Township. Those were also provided in the 2021 plan, updated in the quick strategy guide, and then updated again with the strategic plan. Just to note that even though the census only happens every 10 years, there is an ongoing American Community Survey that is released on a yearly basis. So these numbers do change from year to year. So having the most recent numbers is beneficial to you, especially as your population increases, because certain population thresholds mean certain things that the township can and cannot do. So that's why it's important to have these updated numbers. Then talking about the sewers, like I said, this map became outdated within a week of submitting it to you for review. Most of it is still representing what was studied. So there were actually 5 of these 6 alignments that are shown here that were studied. And then the 6th alignment that they studied was different than what's shown as alternate 6 on here. So the 6th alignment is the one that John mentioned goes, it follows this blue line, and then instead of going north on the blue line, it continues east all the way over to 605. So this map will need to be updated to show that analysis. And then also the text will need to be updated to talk about the different scoring criteria and the benefits and cost for all 6 of the proposed alignments. And then ultimately providing a recommendation that's coming out of the sewer district of which line will be constructed and how those costs will be distributed. Then there is water. Water is currently provided from Delco Water. There are a number of different things that Delco is proposing. I will just go straight to the map. I think it's easier to see on the map. So they do have the new tank that they just built. You can see it in Center Village. That combined with the existing tank provides 1 million gallons of service to the township today. They are looking at providing a transmission line that would go across Hoover Reservoir and come into the township. And then the dotted lines would take the water lines up to potentially new tanks within the township, depending upon growth patterns and demands for the water. There's also discussion about a Columbus master metered connection tank in the southeast corner of the township. And those are all options that are out there. And that's why they're shown in dotted lines. The red lines are lines that are being studied and designed for currently.
So where your cursor is, excuse me. You go across the line, that line right there.
Mhm.
What arterial is that? What roadway is that?
Yeah, it is. I believe it's Center Village. Molly, do you know? Can you zoom in on your end to see?
Sorry, I can't hear the question that was asked. Can you hear me? Holly, can you hear me?
Oh, we're on mute.
The draft is published, so we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's online.
Good.
So,
Thank you.
yep. All right. And then electricity, we have the 345K transmission line with the substations that connect to the existing Vassal substation. So first of all, Molly did try to talk and we couldn't hear her. So just, I don't know if that's an issue with the Zoom or what, but she just texted me that she was trying to talk, so.
We just turn the volume down so that people can't just
Oh, okay.
chit chat on there. It's
Okay.
willy-nilly if they'd like, so yeah.
Okay.
People like talking,
Thanks. No problem.
feel the need.
All right. Did you have an answer to that question, Molly?
Sorry, I was just gonna say that I could not really hear the first question.
Okay.
What do we need to find out?
That's fine. We told them they can get it online, but where the red line goes across Hoover Reservoir and comes out into the township for the water line, what is the major arterial? So if you could just look that up, you can text me.
Okay. Also, I will say that if we don't have it in this plan, that these maps all came directly from Delco, and if we need to reach back out, we can do so.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I believe it's Smothers,
That's
or excuse me, Woodtown.
Woodtown. Okay, it's not Smothers. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Woodtown.
Okay. They don't have the road names on their maps, so like Molly said, we will reach out and confirm, but yes. Okay. All right. So we have the electricity, we have the Vassal Green Chapel project that is running through the township with the 150-foot tall transmission towers, 150-foot wide utility corridor, and will be providing power directly to Intel. So the construction of that is expected to occur between early 2026 and spring of 2027. We also talk about stormwater. Harlan Township is what is considered a MS4 community, which means municipal separate storm sewer system. This means that any type of construction that is 1 acre or more has to have what's called a desk permit, and MS4s are required to have their own desk regulations. So in communities that are not MS4s, they can go to the EPA and get approval. But in MS4 communities, they have to get approval from their local entity. In this particular case, the Delaware County engineer does this on behalf of Harlem Township. So we did reach out to Delaware County just to understand the process that they utilized for that and made sure that we had that in the plan so that in the future, the township understands that developers have to get that permit and the developers understand where to go to get that permit. Roads are another important topic. And again, all of these infrastructure proposals are all from the entities who maintain these infrastructures. So roadways are a little bit tricky because they can be county roads, they can be township roads, they can be state roads. What I really like that is happening in this area is that the Licking County Transportation Improvement District has taken a lead in helping plan for this area as it grows. They're calling it the 20-minute working group from Intel. So all of the entities that are within that 20-minute time are invited to and involved in that planning process. And so they have improvements that are being proposed throughout the 20-minute drive time, but specific to Harlem Township are the 3 roundabouts that are proposed along County Line Road, one at Fancher, one at Center Village and Duncan Plains, and then one at 37. So this plan talks about those improvements as well as other improvements in and around the area that are from a regional perspective. Delaware County Engineers Office we talked with them. We talked about the north-south connectivity. We also talked about understanding how Smothers Bridge over the Hoover Reservoir, what their plans are for that, which are no plans for lane additions, and then understanding how that east-west connectivity takes place through the township. And then talking about partners, we have talked with the, surrounding communities, and talking with, each of them, understanding, how each of them would see Harlem Township, what's their vision for Harlem Township, how do they, work with the township moving forward. And I think as we have talked in previous meetings, that, the city of Columbus has really, stepped into a role of talking about partnership with Harlem Township, a partnership that would retain Harlem Township's autonomy, and would help the township generate revenue moving forward through a potential JED, Joint Economic Development District. I know there are some in here that may not know what that term is. If you go to the plan, we do define the terms, but don't want to spend a ton of time, going through what each of those are, throughout. But in talking with them, having an understanding that they would work with us to enter into a non-annexation agreement. And we still have a lot of conversation that has to happen. But where that non-annexation agreement, those boundaries would extend, and how the JED would, be formed, and what those different revenue sharing components would be between Columbus and Harlem Township. And a key component to that is making sure we have revenue generating uses where that JED is going to be in place with the city of Columbus. So that all ties back to Dana's conversation of maybe we need to rethink some of these land uses. So I think another, key partner to talk about is the city of New Albany. In meeting with them, having the conversations about them participating in the extension of sewer could be very beneficial, to the township. And then also our conversations with Galena, and then having potentially a non-annexation agreement with Galena. I think we also need to have that conversation with New Albany. But also with Galena, we've had that conversation. And then also about how getting sewers to that northeast corner would be part of that northwest corner would be part of that non-annexation agreement. So the plan talks about, all of the different surrounding entities and how we could partner as a township with each of them to help protect the autonomy and protect the boundaries of the township and be beneficial to, all parties involved. Any questions about that section?
Are you gonna include the New Albany and Galena into the draft?
Yes. New Albany is just evolving right now.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Last chapter that I really want to cover tonight is process. We started this process, with a, community-wide meeting, back in February, I believe was our first one. And that meeting was where we, did a SOAR activity: strengths, opportunities, aspirations equals results. That allowed us to create, a draft priority list. And it also allowed us to create what we call, soup sessions, which you're seeing a picture of here on your screen. We made everything that we did at the February community meeting, we put into these soup jars and allowed, our steering committee members and anyone who attended the community meeting to take one of these jars with them and to hold their own soup session. It gave little recipe cards of, how to run the SOAR activity, and helped residents connect with their neighbors, in a way that helped, those neighbors to participate in a way they may not participate in a larger meeting. So we were able to gather additional information through that process. So we thought that was a beneficial activity as we collected data from the community. We also held a number of steering committees in between these meetings, as well as two other community-wide meetings where we discussed the priorities and ranked them, and then also just started to get feedback from the community as what their thoughts were on all of the different strategies. The steering committee, after each of the large community-wide meetings, would give us feedback on what they heard the community say and what they heard the trustees say at the following meeting, so that in case we were as a team not hearing something correctly, we were able to get feedback from the steering committee, like, we heard it this way, or we think it needs to be tweaked this way, to reflect what we're hearing from the committee. So that's kind of goes into that comment about country suburban lifestyle. The committee felt like that needed some tweaking. So we need to have a conversation about that. In addition to having these steering committee meetings, the steering committee was charged with going on community visits, field trips, as we called them. And we were able to get the committee members to reach as far out as West Clay, Indiana, and then also closer to home, Beulah Park, Pinnacle, Aberlin Springs, Jerome Township, and Pataskala. An effort of being cognizant of time, not going to walk through the reports on all of those. They're all in the report that's online. But some of the high level comments that I heard coming out of that was West Clay was something to use as a model. It was something that really was a self-sustaining community. It had everything from a vet to school, no, the schools were outside, a vet to restaurants to offices to anything that you needed was pretty much there. Everything was in a walkable setting, and the design criteria was strictly adhered to as it developed and moved forward. Aberlin Springs, which is just outside of Lebanon, Ohio, was another example of something that the steering committee feels would be appropriate and comparable to a Harlem Township. I'm actually going to move down into the document so I can show an illustration that we got of and it's basically a working farm, and it clusters the residential uses to I'm going to stop sharing until I find this, and then I'll put it back on. It clusters the residentials in one area and then has the working farm inside of the residential uses. Everything is people that live there are part of that working farm. They're also required to purchase a CSA, which is a community supported agriculture. It's like a subscription to agriculture. So they buy the food that is grown on the property. And so it is really a model that the steering committee felt was appropriate for us to continue to explore as we move forward with this. And I think in my mind, having a combination of a West Clay and an Aberlin on such a large area of Harlem Township could be actually feasible. Having a certain area where West Clay model makes sense, and then a certain area maybe around Duncan Ron or around the less the more open fields or where maybe some agriculture is currently being conducted, maybe the Aberlin Farms concept makes some sense in those areas. So I think that's something we need to churn in our head and consider as we move forward. But that illustration on the screen shows you how that particular development is laid out. And I think what is interesting about it is that Maureen is the one who went and visited it, and she said she actually got off the highway, had to drive by Target, and then went into the a mile or two down the road into this development. So it is in close proximity to existing development. So with that, that takes us through process. I think that's a good stopping point for us to get feedback from you, because the rest of it is all things we have to tweak based upon, what we're hearing feedback from.
Holly, can you hear me?
Have you run any of this by Chris Herman at MKSK at this point?
I have not at this point. The way I was envisioning the peer review would be that we would get that economic development piece in there because it informs the rest of this. And then because we're going to have to adjust our recommendations. We know we're going to have to once we get that economic development piece. Make those adjustments, make any changes we need based upon feedback we're hearing. And then we would have MKSK do the final review once we have that information.
Am I correct in my understanding that the governing body of West Clay is essentially a HOA?
Basically, it is because it's part of Carmel, Indiana. It's not its own entity. It is a community within that city.
And Carmel, not a small town, right? Like, I mean, that's
Right,
that's a substantial.
Yes.
And so the whole reason that West Clay exists is because Carmel set it aside with that intentional development.
That is correct. And it was one person's vision too. It was a single entity that
Sure.
had that vision. Yes.
I'm curious, so on the soup sessions, do we have any sort of data on the reach that we got with that? Like how many people attended soup sessions?
I think we ended up with 15 to 20 sessions. Let me look it up. I can look it up and get it to you. So I'm not spending my time here, but
Yeah,
I
and
have
I guess
the data.
I'm
Yes.
just curious if we have the data really.
Yeah.
And then I'm curious if we had some sort of loose head count on how many folks showed up to the Saturday community meeting.
Yes, it started out stronger and did dwindle off as we went. But yes, we have all of the sign-in sheets and tabulations of all of those as well.
I wonder if that data might be worthwhile to have in this documentation, right? Just to show
Yep.
the representation of the community.
Yep.
Were you wanting to talk exurb versus country suburban lifestyle? And I would be interested to hear from steering committee members
I
in
agree.
regard to this.
Can I make a comment on that before?
Yeah.
So I actually was able to watch this section of the meeting, and it seemed like the steering committee had the same aha moment that we had in this meeting of what that word means. Because when you first hear it, it's a little bit cringy, but then once ChatGPT gives you the definition of it, it's like, oh, you know what? That is exactly us, right, Maureen? Right? Like, I mean, that's on the nose what we're trying to achieve here. And so I thought that was very interesting, especially since, that term first came up in here, but I would love to hear some more about that as well.
So Maureen and Chris?
I think, we talk about the soup kitchen, we talk about there's a lot of feedback about, still desire for rural, and put rural in quotes, right? I mean, because we know we're gonna develop, but there's still a community pride in the rural piece. And as you move quickly from rural to community suburban loses that full touch. Now, ex-urban, you gotta walk around with ChatGPT, get out and follow your phone. But I mean, my feedback is just, it's pretty overwhelming whether it's the community sessions or it's the soup kitchens or or soup meetings, whatever they're called. Or, anything that we've done, people still want that tie to a rural-esque community. I'll just
Yeah, that
speak
was-
for myself, community suburban loses that rural touch.
If you look at the analysis that came out, that it's not a SWOT, what's it called?
SOAR.
SOAR. The SOAR, SWAT's my word from my business time. The SOAR analysis, the word rural comes up almost in every single line item, right? Is rural, low density. That's really what the community feedback is about, strengths, about desires and all of that. So it's really hard to move to country suburban, and I think most people, suburban has a bad connotation. It means ugly buildings. It means Hamilton Road and Morse Road with lots of apartments and that sort of thing. And I'm sure that's what all of our residents are saying no to. Not that we can say no to all development, but that's what's being said no to.
Well, yeah, and I think we're probably all aligned in that rural holds a special place because of the sense of the word, not necessarily the Webster definition of it. And I think when John first brought exurban to this table in a meeting prior to the steering committee talking about it, we were like, man, that's absolutely the word, but we just weren't sure if anybody was going to catch on to the term, right, Holly? I mean, I feel like that's kind of how we were thinking about it. So for me, it was really great to watch the recording of the steering committee, kind of hear that word, hear the definition, be like, oh man, that's absolutely us, because that was the same response that we had.
I do have a question for both the steering committee and the trustees. When I think of exurban, I think of you as being exurban today. We've talked about this, Kelsey, Molly, and I as a team. We think that you're pretty much exurban today. And as you grow, are you really still going to fit that definition of exurban? Or are you suburban with that rural, I keep using that term aesthetic, but because we hear that there's a disconnect of what you are today and what you're are going to be in the future, and are we masking that with a term of exurban?
So my understanding of exurban was 2 to 10 residents per acre. Residents, units. And so as I read that seemed not only to define us, I completely agree with you, but it seemed also that could be, can we maintain being an exurb and not become a suburb?
Mm-hmm.
And that I think that would be my desire today.
Yep.
That we do not become a suburb by definition.
Okay. Okay. That's
And
the conversation. That's what I want to hear. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Yep.
Copy.
And
Another comment?
Is there another comment? One of the things I challenged a little bit with was land use. I mean, we talk about economic development and the economy. Very small proportion of the economy in our township is from agriculture. But if you drive around, what we see is big open spaces. And if you look at the land use map, 80% is in crops, hay, and forest, deciduous forest. So I think that when we think about development, are there ways that we can maintain the visual of open spaces that feel rural? And I think Abilene Springs does that, right? You still have, there's some high density areas there. There's some cluster housing there, but everything is single-sided streets, and it all looks out over a farm. So you have that feeling of rural. That's, I think, what people want and don't want to lose.
What I say is country aesthetic. And so when you drive, not in the center of Carmel, but into the communities of Carmel or into the community of West Clay, you definitely have that sense of, oh, I'm driving on a country road. And yet there are these communities that are just off the road that you really can't see. And that would be beautiful for us to retain as development occurs. So a country aesthetic in an exurb.
Hearing that we're getting industry in our township, right? Am I hearing pharmaceuticals? I've heard that like 3 or 4 times. That's kind of.
Yeah, Central Ohio appears to be a place where the pharmaceutical industry is landing. And New Albany and NACO in particular are courting these industries. Central Ohio, I would say one Columbus. And so the answer to your question is yes.
And I heard Southwest.
You did hear Southwest. Yes.
Short of all the things.
Yeah. Well, and it's not in the plan right now. This is something that has evolved, in conversations as we've talked with New Albany, we've talked with Dana McDaniel at the county. These are things that we are hearing.
So just to take that a step further, let's say that some commercial or light industry occurred or a data center. And then we would say, okay, we're not opposed to this. However, we have development standards where the look of whatever you build is a country aesthetic. We don't want to see what you build, to be frank. We want to drive down the road and not know you're there, except for a sign. And so you try to achieve these same goals, even as development occurs. And other communities have accomplished this. And so it was interesting talking to New Albany last week. If you go down 605, right where New Albany Road runs into 605, there's a great big pharmaceutical company sits there that they've been adding to. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a big square monstrosity. And New Albany laments that building because their zoning allowed for the original building to then add on these 2 humongous additions that are really obtrusive in the landscape. And so they wish that if they could go back, they would have zoned it so that that company could not do what they've done. And so we have an opportunity to learn from that and to say, okay, if we're going to get a pharmaceutical company here, they can build a building that's appropriate to our township and fits into zoning that is exactly palatable to all of us. And I'm sure mistakes, you learn from mistakes, right? And but it was interesting to hear them talk about that. Sir?
If that can happen to New Albany.
Yeah.
With all of their massive resources.
Yeah.
And connections at levels that are incomprehensible to most of us. What chance do we have?
The chance that we have is, I think that Harlem Township's strength lies in the strength of its partnerships. And so being at the table with the city of Columbus or with NACO or the city of New Albany and hearing them say, hey, we care very much about Harlem Township and how it's developed. One, we honor your autonomy. We're not interested in coming in to your township and taking it over. We do want you to retain your geographic integrity and your cultural identity, but we want to see excellent development. And we will help you to that end. And so I think having their expertise, and so when Jennifer Chrysler says, hey, here's a lesson learned from us, that our ears perk up and we pay attention to that and continue to seek their expertise as we walk down this path. And one of the beautiful things right now is, as we recognize that Intel is slowing down, it gives us time. And it gives us time to continue this planning process and to continue to develop these relationships that are so crucial to excellent development. Is it a guarantee that we won't make mistakes? No, we will make some mistakes, etc. However, let's try to make as few as possible and make wise, informed decisions as we walk down the path, and decisions that are transparent to our community.
I'd add two things to that. One, we had one of our steering committee members visit a community where she felt she could get some lessons learned so that it wasn't just looking out pie in the sky, but getting examples of how could we do better. So I think that's important that that happened too. And then the second thing is that the plan also has recommendations, which one we're not getting into the recommendations tonight, but it has discussions about how does the township grow? How does it increase its capacity to plan and enforce and be able to handle that growth from an administrative level? And so that is, it has to be tied together. You can't just do it with 3 trustees. It has to grow and become a bigger entity as well.
Alice would like to speak online. Alice, if you can hear me, go ahead.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Hey, I think Holly was just referring to me. I went and visited Pataskala because I see it as an area that is trying, but has really struggled with especially large housing communities being built and not being some of them very pretty to look at. And of course, with the coming in of a lot of high tech, such as Intel, etc. Because yes, we need to learn. And I think what I want to just say is once we do it, once we make those developments, it's very hard to undo it. And I know we talk about being financially responsible to the township. And yes, of course, we need to be. But we don't need those same things that New Albany has brought in. And I think it has been mentioned time and again that our zoning should be very strict. So we do not allow drive-throughs. We do not allow chain restaurants. That we really keep as much to the way we operate today as is possible. Yes, will these large developments on the borders sell? Will the developers want to make the biggest money possible by bringing in large industry? But I say a fight that we make rather than giving in is much better than just making allowances that we cannot undo in the future. And that's all I wanted to add to that. Thank you.
Anything else, Holly?
I don't have anything else. I think just having everyone review it, and if you have any additional comments as we go forward, I'm happy to take those written comments from anyone, from trustees to steering committee to residents, to help help improve the plan where it needs to be improved.
If you are looking for the draft, I think we talked about it. You go to our website, harlemtwp.com. On that first main page, scroll all the way to the bottom, it says latest news and events. You will see the Harlem emblem and it says 2025 draft strategic plan. Click on that and it sends you a link straight to that document. So it is out for you guys. I'll also get it up on Facebook tomorrow. So if you guys struggle to get to the website and you're on the Facebook page, it'll pop up on your stream tomorrow.
John, you want to touch on any of these other topics and then before we open it up?
I mentioned that we had met with Columbus during our last trustee meeting. That Columbus meeting was driven by Russ Miller's property. It's the first property that you come to when you're coming off the roundabout at Smothers. and Harlem. It's currently undeveloped. Russ had asked Columbus to annex the property, and Columbus stalwartly told him no and reiterated that no in their meeting that we had. That was very important because it demonstrated to us that Columbus was going to act in good faith and according to their word. Interestingly, coming out of that meeting, Russ asked us to meet with him with a different developer. And so this is a developer that is out of Texas that has quite a portfolio of development properties in Texas and in other states. And really had a very good meeting with both Crossroads and the township that came with an agenda that I wish every developer had an agenda that looked like this agenda and walked right through all of the salient points. I thought that we had a very fruitful conversation and answered questions so that this developer could then make a recommendation to his larger team about whether or not they would pursue this property. Again, they're looking at a property that currently allows for 12 units per acre. So there is the potential for there to be apartments, et cetera, on that property, which is about how many acres, Holly? 80?
It's
80
I
or
think
so
six-
acres.
60 to
Or
80.
60 to
more
80
60.
acres, right there. And so, you know, that conversation is ongoing. Who knows how that will develop. And then tomorrow we'll have another meeting with Columbus. And again, that meeting is aiming toward the creation of a CETA agreement that includes a JED and an appendix. Crossroads and Pete Griggs will be in that meeting. This is at Columbus's request to just kind of mature the conversation a little bit. The ball really is in our court because we have to develop our economic plan and bring that to Columbus and say, here's what we want. But we are going to honor the request and have a meeting with them tomorrow just to have an ongoing discussion. We did ask New Albany for a second meeting regarding the sewer that I asked for in the next couple of weeks. I really think that Delaware County will be trying to make a decision about sewer direction in a 60 to 90 day time frame. Does anyone else have any other comments about the strategic planning process or anything that we've discussed to this point? Because we're going to be changing the discussion to home rule and single trash hauler. So before we get to those two unique points, are there any other comments about this? Jim?
Yeah.
Yes,
I was on the agenda to speak tonight. And would probably be a good time now because it pertains to what Holly's been talking about. That would give people a chance to comment.
That'd be great.
That'll be all right?
Yeah, please come to the podium.
Yep. Let's get my glasses back. My name's Jim Steelsmith. I'm a resident of Harlem Township. I've been working with the township for going on 5 years in different capacities. The work that's been going on has really stepped up and done. Everybody's doing a good job. There's three topics I'll hit on real quick for you. Number one, the sewer. Had a conversation with Julie today at Delaware County, and the thing that we're sort of missing is, as this is progressing and getting very detailed, is the lack of the developers at the meetings with Delaware County. So what I would suggest is that somebody reach out to them. Maybe if you have a large meeting with all the engineers and that type of thing, I know you had a meeting today. Maybe then follow it up with a meeting with Julie and the developers, letting them know. The information that you gave today, I heard it this afternoon. So the other developers haven't heard it. So they need to be informed so they can plan and also have some input. With that going forward, when they call me, I'll tell them to give their card to you guys. And somebody needs to follow up with them so they can be involved. There is some little bit of upset that they're not involved as the things are moving forward. They have given comments, but then nobody follows up with them from the county or the township. So with that, that's the end of that. I just want to bring that forward. The other thing is going into our strategic draft that Holly started presenting tonight. There's some things that I noticed and some of the residents have noticed. And even though it's a draft, we would like to maybe bring it to your attention, and also make some comments on it. And because this is the process, we're at a point of the process where changes can be made. And that's the idea. We don't wait till the last meeting or it's gone to the printer. With that, Holly, can you bring up page 29? I think that's the large draft on the.
Yep.
So the steering committee has done an excellent job. They have followed through with what was started way before they got involved and continued it forward. And they have done a really good job. There again, the rule-esque, that type of thing, and followed along what a lot of the previous work that had been done. Until we noticed a couple things. Number one, if you look down in the bottom of the township there, the purple bluish shading, that with Fancher Road running through the middle. We've noticed that there is a proposed, possibly, mixed use area going 2,000 feet north of Fancher Road. I don't know the thought behind that. I think it's excessive in certain areas and appropriate in certain areas. But to do a carte blanche across the whole bottom of the township, I don't think is called for. And a lot of the residents don't think that's called for. What can happen is that is actual zoning. That is actual overlay. You can't control what somebody's going to put in there if he meets all the criteria to build, whether it's commercial or apartments. Once you do a carte blanche zoning like that, you want this or you want that, he can come in and say, I'm going to build these units, let's say apartments, and I've met all your criteria. You got to let him build them. So doing a carte blanche like that, I think, is dangerous. Also, it entails large residential areas that doesn't necessarily need to be in that. If you take that southwest corner area and the farms that includes, you're talking a potential of more than 4,000 apartments, additional to what's already possible on Russ Miller's and some others. We do have large areas already in the mixed use on the southeast side, following New Albany, having some interest. Maybe we need to put some of those kind of businesses in. That southeast corner was already zone mixed use on both sides of the road, large parcels. That would follow right in with what you're proposing and trying to do. And it doesn't affect a lot of people who already live there. I think the one on the west side going 2,000 feet north, I think that's excessive. And I think it includes the wrong type of neighborhoods into that zoning. With that in mind, what we had originally talked about on the original strategic plan was that we always knew there would need to be some mixed use north of Fancher. We knew that. We did, obviously, the south side, and there was a lot of thought in that. We put a lot of thought into that. But the idea was that if you take in these large farms, the development of them, that the developer will bring to the township, to the zoning commission, the review board, whoever it is, their idea. One developer has an idea that there's a low area that he was going to put in a lake and then maybe put condos around the lake. And maybe that would be, it's more than the 3 to the acre that it's zoned for residential now. So he would come and ask for that. Well, that would be a nice addition to the community. Or somebody's going to have some kind of business, a mixed use business, and you look at the area, but you have control of what goes there. When you do a carte blanche, then you've lost control because the zoning says you could do this, or whatever. And if they meet all the criteria, they're going to do it. So I asked that the steering committee and Holly and the trustees and everybody go back and maybe look at that and maybe try to come up with some different ideas on how to accomplish that. The goal, of course, is to bring in business. I understand that. But I think it can be done in a different manner. Plus, we do have some large areas. The problem is that southeast side is not closest to the sewer. But to go into large residential, actually our largest concentration of populations on that southwest. And so we don't want to bother those people. And I think some of them are here tonight. And and they're concerned. I'm concerned because it doesn't quite follow what we originally started. But they've done a good job. It just needs to be changed a little bit and modified. The other thing that I thought was different and strange, I don't know the thought behind it, is from Center Village Road South on 605. That whole strip has been potentially to be cottage industry. There again, when we originally did that area, and there was a lot of thought and there's a lot of research on that we knew that there would have to be businesses along 605. That's never been an argument. To go in and there again do a carte blanche zoning for the cottage industry, the idea originally was you're going to have all this housing and you're going to have these neighborhoods, well, no matter what it is. It could be nice large ones, it could be condos, whatever, but you're going to have an influx of people. You're going to need commercial to service them. You know, barber shops, ice cream store, whatever. And the idea is the developer would then come and make a proposal for a commercial development, that type of thing, and you would have control over what it is. I don't think the cottage industry will support some of the needed commercial that will be needed later on in that area. There's going to need some larger commercial to support all those residents. Not only that, it is a great location because you're going up and down 605. So you're going to have the 605 traffic, and then you're going to have the residents, which for a commercial venue, that's great. That gives them a twofer. And that's what they're looking for. So I think maybe a look at that, because that is such a high impact zone, to look at that mixed use and maybe, or that cottage industry and maybe change that. I don't know. I haven't been to their meetings. I've watched them. Maybe shaded areas where if you're trying to propose something for the future, is to shade some areas and say it could potentially be future commercial, that you're looking at it to be future commercial.
That was the intent.
Yeah, do in the same way on pick a, and I would be happy to discuss it with anybody. When you're looking at like 605 in Fancher or Harlem and Fancher or something, what areas could be shaded so that you know that you want to put something there. And I think that would be more beneficial. And I'm sure we can work something out because we have enough time. And that was the whole idea, was to get in when we have time to work on it and that type of thing. Not to, I know we're running long. The other thing that I noticed in this and is going forward, and even Holly mentioned it, that we're going to need more people as a township to help as we grow. in talking with maintenance and administration and zoning, we don't need them today. But we had some subdivisions that were supposed to go in this summer, it didn't go in. So we dodged the bullet there. There's some ideas, and I'd be happy to discuss. Holly listed the townships with administrators. Some of them, there's a lot of townships with administrators, and their salaries. And but the problem is, when I went and looked them up, and I'm not faulting anybody, but every one of those township has a operating budget 4 times or larger than ours. So it's really not apples to apples. However, there are some other types of jobs, until we're ready for a full-blown administrator, that would be less expensive. I didn't know what to label him, or her. So I called it a township manager, which will handle a lot of the things that you're talking about in this interim period. And then going forward, eventually you will have an administrator, and you'll have assistant this and assistant that, it's going to grow. So, but the manager, I think, would be somewhere around maybe the zoning officer's type salary. And they could encompass a lot of things that aren't getting done right now, because the teams aren't assigned to do these items. And I'd be happy to talk to you about it further. I've done a lot of research on it. So I'm done. Has anybody got any questions? Steve.
Question. I'm Steve Dents. I live off Harlem Road. Can somebody explain or help us understand the process that gets us to these kind of significant changes that are now recommended? That my limited experience take us further away from rural. And take us closer to something other than that. There may be plenty of economic and other things that are playing a role here, but how do those changes get made and put in a document and called recommended without meaningful discussion?
So
That moved us further away from.
So there have been numerous conversations that the mixed use needed to be moved up. We chose the 2,000 feet because it did encompass some of the larger parcels that would be targeted for development. Just because it is over the overall area doesn't mean every single piece of that has the ability to pull down the cloud. There is a 25-acre minimum in the overlays in order to pull down the cloud to utilize the overlay. So if you're on one of those smaller parcels, you would have to aggregate your land with somebody else to pull it down, or you wouldn't be able to use the overlay. So the overlays are there just to make it a cohesive strip. But if we want to target specific pieces within there, we can look at targeting. But I think we do need to be up to the 2,000 feet to take in some of those larger parcels. As far as the area between Center Village and the mixed use that's shown as cottage business, we utilize the township's existing comprehensive plan that shows those corridors as being business oriented. I don't disagree that you don't want a strip of commercial. I agree that you don't want a strip of commercial just down 605. I think the intent of this, and I think that's just a labeling thing on our end, is it's not necessarily an overlay that we're recommending through there. It's allowing the overlays to allow business uses in strategic places within that area. So we need to tailor that and not label this as overlay, but label it as future land use.
Yeah, that's the shading we were talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
I think, Steve, just to answer your question from the larger perspective, that the sewer agreement that was made in the mid-90s with Columbus to build a trunk line in the corner of our township that is now coming to fruition 30 years after that agreement was made, and now Delaware County saying we're going to extend sewer off of that trunk line is driving these conversations. And developers who knew about that agreement and who understood that the large parcels that are in the southwest corner would likely be served by that infrastructure first, purchase those parcels with that in mind. And so you have developers who have made investments in large pieces of ground that they know is going to be served by infrastructure. And the township has been moving over the last 4 or 5 years, recognizing that the landscape is changing. And that's what's driving this discussion as we try to respond to these growing pains.
So I understand that, but, and that's not really new news, right?
Right.
That's been the case. My question is to change this lower, the south
So,
edge
yes.
from what it was to what it says now, in a recommended document.
Yes.
Somebody's made a decision, that's where we should go.
Yeah. So I think there are a couple of things that are driving that. One would be the folks that own those large parcels have intentions with those large parcels that they're aiming toward. And the township is either development's going to either happen to us or with us. And so we're trying to come to some middle road agreement where we don't get Morris Road in Hamilton, but we understand that a developer wants to have appropriate density. And so we're really aiming for what is appropriate density and in particular the southwest or the southeast corners. So I think that evolves out of that conversation with developers. Yeah.
The map parcels. South of Fancher Road, there are no large parcels that would actually meet the criteria to pull down. You have to go north of Fancher Road in order to.
Mhm.
There are some on the south side
There
that
are
will.
some.
Where you say.
Yeah, we've already got people combining, yes.
Yes.
Been any traffic studies,
Yes.
especially
Mhm.
on that section, especially considering what I heard today was that there is absolutely no plans to widen the bridge across Hoover.
Right.
And what I see is the minute there is a wreck on New 161, then what happens is all of the overflow either hits Central College to go to Sunray Road or it comes up to Smothers and goes across. And then it is total gridlock.
Correct.
Mhm.
The minute you
Yeah,
do that and you start adding in more business there, then it's not gonna happen just when there's a wreck on 161. It's gonna happen that way all the time. And that bridge is a choke point. I can tell you from experience, it's taken me over an hour. And I've had to cancel class to get to Ohio State time to teach.
And we have a reciprocal agreement with our neighbors to the west for fire and EMS, and they have to come across that bridge.
I'll let Chief speak to that.
Chief, you know,
I'll let Chief speak. So we talked to the Delaware County engineer, and there's no plan to widen any road in Harlem Township for the next decade. So all traffic right now will be handled by roundabouts. So they're trying to relieve the pressure via roundabout. So they showed us.
Roundabouts there. They put a roundabout in Westerville at Sudbury Road.
So they showed us the actual traffic density on all of our roads. And currently that density does not meet the requirement to demand widening roads. They have done studies on what they anticipate to be the traffic moving from west to east to service Intel. And they still don't think that that traffic will meet the threshold to widen roads in Harlem Township.
But if you change the zoning and you have large
They've
populations in those areas, that's what's gonna happen.
Just
said
12 homes per acre. No,
calculated that into their,
so let me be sure that you understand that that corner lot, Mr. Miller's lot, which is 60 some acres, is the most densely zoned lot in the township. So there's one lot in the township that's zoned for 12 units per acre. That's the only lot.
Excuse me, John.
But it's right on county line, right?
That's correct.
So I don't know if it was a mistake, but
Got
when
that bridge is the choke point.
they ran that across over to Covan and Red Bank, and they ran that 12 to the acre all the way over.
it's on there. We,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that as in any area, there will be pressure. There will be inconvenience. We've sat on some others too, going across the dam. That's not fun. But it's very important that the township be continually engaged in conversation with the Delaware County engineer. And I think that these traffic studies will be ongoing. Here, what we have to our benefit is that our engineer tends to be proactive, whereas at the state level, they're more reactive. And so the beauty is that Delaware County is looking at where there's going to be pressure and they're saying, we need a roundabout, and they're on the schedule to be constructed. Whereas if it was the state, you're not going to get a roundabout till everybody's pulling their hair out. And so we have a pretty good county engineer that's trying to predict the needs that are in the township.
To give you an idea about ODOT, I went to a meeting last year and the analysis this year. Their 10-year plan is nothing changes at 605 and 37, no turning lanes. My wife came home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in May. There was 57 cars trying to go north or turn to go to Sunbury. That's not a problem according to them. So I think some of this is they think if it festers bad enough, ODOT and maybe even the county, the feds will drop some money on them, in my opinion.
Just have a quick question.
Yes.
The developer from Texas did the presentation. Is the presentation public, 1? 2, did they provide any exhibits regarding how they saw the development of that 68 acres? 3, has the proposed zoning for that corner been codified? Because it's right behind my house.
So this was an initial meeting.
Okay.
So it was an exploratory meeting.
Okay.
So it wasn't for public record. It was more them looking at what are the possibilities, what's the zoning. 2, we asked them in our next meeting, we'd love to see, visualize what you're talking about. They did provide several examples online of developments they've done in the past, which I'm not sure were actually congruent with what we have here in Harlem Township. But then 3, yes, it is codified. The current zoning is codified.
So 4.
Yeah.
That's why I'm very impressed with what I'm hearing. Because I see a sensitivity to protect, and I use this word for it, the rural character of who we are. And I know ODOT. So I'm confident, and yeah, there's some very concerned neighbors who have been in that southwest corner that are more important than a developer.
Indeed. And this brings me back to Jim's initial point about talking to developers. I think I've talked to all these developers, Jim, at one time or another. In Holly and I've wrestled with this. Our job is not to represent a developer to Delaware County. It's the developer's job to go to Delaware County and say, here's what I think I need. I am very sensitive in my role as a trustee to not represent any one developer, nor for Holly to. I'll talk to them, I'll answer their questions, share information, but I cannot represent them. And I would encourage them, hey, if you have a concern, call Delaware County and express and voice your concern.
And when you do the numbers, 60 acres times 12, it's 700 units.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just numbers.
Dan, I just want to point out that Delaware County is just, we've got notice of eminent domain, and we have a lot of land from Montgomery Road up to 37, taking 10 to 30 feet of our land all the way along out of Harlem Township. They didn't take it out of Licking, out of Harlem Township, going to widen the road.
That's the Licking,
That's
the Licking transportation, whatever.
Improvement district.
Yeah,
improvement district. They're going, so we're going through eminent domain pretty soon, and there's several other landowners up through there, so we'll be losing that land. So there are road changes that Delaware County's making. Plus the roundabout, of course, we've already know about that.
Yes.
Right.
I think Bill had a question back there. Do you remember what it is now, Bill?
No, I'm responsible for most of my neighbors coming to this meeting, and what we're concerned most about is that SWAT, that 2,000-foot SWAT in the southwest corner of the township. Can that zoning just go away to where it would become a multiple use zoning as opposed to what it is today? That's what we're here for.
Or the overlay, isn't it?
They're concerned about the new overlay.
And let's make sure, I want to make sure everybody's clear that one, it would take, this is just draft. And it's not necessarily recommended, it is draft one to get feedback such as this.
Right.
Number two, whatever gets approved as part of the strategic plan would then need to get codified. So the only thing that's codified today are the existing overlays, which does not include that additional 2,000 feet.
12 house per acre,
There is a portion that is 12 units per acre today, but it is not as wide as it is here.
Yeah, it has not hit Covan yet. This is just new. That's why we're talking about it.
It's, okay, all right.
It stops at Harlem, correct.
Yeah,
The
it
current.
stops at Harlem Road, so Covan and all that over there and that farm just north of you, that's not in it yet.
So
But that's on the map. That's why we're talking about it.
I want to point out real quick that what the suggestions that we're talking about right now are in chapter 5 of this document, which was not presented to the board tonight. So we've jumped ahead a bit. I think it's important conversation, but it's a conversation that we're planning on having next month. So, and then what we want to have this feedback so that, as Holly said, necessary changes can be implemented to the plan. I will also say that it warms my heart to see this room full again. I've had more than 2 meetings in here where there's only been 7 people sitting in front of me, and those 7 of you, you know who you are, and I appreciate it. But I would also commend everyone that has come here tonight doing so in a civil manner. So thank you for bringing your neighbors to this meeting tonight. Well, and I think that it is wonderful, and I wish that it would happen every month, especially when I sit up here and I say, hey, I really wish the community would come out and talk about home rule, even though it doesn't happen. So, you know, we'll get to that at some point, but I don't want the spirit to be that I'm trying to shut the conversation down. I am to some degree because it is 8:52, but this will be topic of conversation at the next meeting. Please do. Chief will get some more chairs.
And then recognize that what comes out of the strategic plan has to go to the zoning board. So there's a whole process that has to unfold for this to be codified. This is just the initial conversation. And so your input at the front end is very valued.
Essential.
Yes, sir.
I know everybody wants to go, but try to be real quick. I want to say, everybody's thanking each other. And we owe you guys thanks for your time too, and everybody that's here as part of Garden Township. Really. It is appreciated. Second thing, if you drive through that area, you know, in that southwest corner where there's $1 million homes to the west and $1 million homes down Covan Drive, and $1 million homes along Smothers Road. The idea, part of the aesthetic that any aesthetic that is important is consistency and continuity. Correct. To slap a multi-story apartment building in that area would be so discongruous that it would have a negative impact on everybody in the area. So that's just a generalized comment. It's important that whatever goes in there, that it fit. Right.
Yeah, what's wrong?
So this will sound a little awkward, sounds awkward in my head anyway. So you made the comment just a few minutes ago that you're not here to support the developers, represent developers. Okay. To me, this is kind of classic developers versus the existing landowners, the existing homeowners. So who's protecting the folks in the southwest corner that they don't end up in a situation where all of a sudden they've got untold number of neighbors in multifamily homes, assuming a roundabout is going to solve all of that from a traffic perspective? And how does the value of their property be supported and protected in this environment? Who's doing that?
It's the trustee's role, I think, to hear your concerns and to support those concerns to the degree that we're able to do so. And as we listen to residents and make decisions based on that knowledge and information that we're given, we're also weighing the realities that are facing us and trying to make wise choices out of these two things. And so sometimes you'll hear developers talk about public and private partnerships. And I think that what we'd like to avoid is creating adversarial relationships, walking down this path. I don't know, is it possible for a township that's facing development, which we are, to walk down a path where development doesn't happen to us, where we're the victims of development, but that it happens with us when we're partnering with current residents and developers that we would hope, and this is developers that share our values as a township. And this is very important. Can we winnow out developers that are here to make a buck from developers that say, hey, I look at your strategic plan and I buy into that strategic plan. And whatever branding you have as a township or whatever aesthetic you have as a township, et cetera, I'm with you on this and I'm willing to work toward these goals. To me, that would be ideal so that we're not in conflict with one another, but we're working together. No doubt compromise has to be made in that process, but it seems like it should be possible. Perhaps
So the developers who have already assembled land.
Yes.
Are they on your list of, I'm gonna put my arm around this guy's shoulder and we're gonna work together? Or are they on the list of, I'm gonna have to give them something? And that may be, the single family homes that are in the southwest corner.
I think that's a harsh way to put it.
Be harsh if it happens.
Yeah.
Practical.
Logical.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question to answer. It's not a zero-sum game.
I understand it's a difficult position to be in.
Yeah.
I'm simply pointing out that the folks who are here and interested in what happens don't have developers' deep pockets, don't have the ear of the folks that need it the most when they need it the most. Because there's lots of money to be made and there's lots of options for them. And they're gonna push and push and push until they get what they think they need. And what you have standing on the other side of that pendulum are a bunch of individuals or families who own their homes that have lived here for a long time, have voiced the idea that they want it to remain rural. And if the developers win, they lose. It's not, it's not, if somebody comes over there and develops a, 700 and some units. Yes. All those homes that sit on multiple acres that look beautiful, that are quiet and see the sunset, sun in the morning, the sunset in the evening, and you get to enjoy all that. Much of that will be gone. You'll still have 2-lane roads trying to move a whole bunch of people who weren't there 5 years ago.
So just to your points, I think what we have, especially in this section of the township, is a textbook example of a rock and a hard place in a lot of ways. As a statutory township, we do not have a lot of ability to direct how a lot of this stuff goes. Just like we don't control roads that are not township roads, the bridges included, we can't stop the sewer. We also can't just wall up Harlem, metaphorically, and say that we're not going to allow any denser development, because if the sewer provides for it on that property, then we are getting into dangerous land rights legal violations, which would shut us down in a big way. And that's not even something we can entertain. So that puts us into a position of, well, do we let these folks annex into neighboring municipalities, or do we do our best to control what that development looks like? None of those are great answers. But I think what this board has been working really hard on the last year and a half is to make us all agree that controlling what our own development looks like is probably the best solution. Now, are we all satisfied of what the zoning looks like in that area of Harlem right now? Probably not. But that's why we're having these discussions. That's why we're talking about it tonight, even though it wasn't on the agenda. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it next month, and we'll continue to talk about it until we've got it as good as we can get it. Because to your point, right? Like the average Harlem citizen doesn't have the super deep pockets. And they don't necessarily have, ears outside, but all of you have our ear, and we're doing everything that we can to try to control what that destiny looks like. And I would also say that we have worked really hard on trying to bring in the right partners to do so. If we were having these same kinds of conversations about the Southwest corner a year ago, we would not have the same allies that we have now. And Harlem, I dare to say, and John, you can disagree with me if you want to, but I dare to say Harlem would look different geographically right now.
Yeah, and one way to look at it, Steve, is would you rather be having a discussion with Columbus zoning in the Southwest corner or with Harlem zoning? Because that's the discussion we would be having.
Steve?
I'm a slow reader, so I'm just sort of catching up a little bit on how we got here. So we spent a lot of time to get to the original overlays. I mean, a lot of time. And we intentionally stopped at Harlem with the multi-use. We would have never gotten that yellow area or the multi-use approved, I don't believe, if we showed this map back then. That would, people would not have supported that. We already had some pretty testy conversations in the strategic planning committee about the multi-use that is there. All right. That area currently would be colored yellow with our current overlays. That allows 3 to the acre. All right. There's some people that don't think that should. I mean, that's why I was fortunate that we could get the yellow approved.
Sure.
Now to sort of arbitrarily put a map out, and I understand that's the risk of a draft. I know you were concerned about that, but so be it. Maybe this one shouldn't have been in there at this point if you didn't know the flashpoint that can create. But it does provide for higher density, just so people know. So that piece of property that's being discussed can be built today at 3 to the acre. Right? You guys know that, right? I don't see heads shaking up at the front.
I want to address what you're saying. So your one point, I think that we all would rather have the discussion than not publish the first draft. There's no issue with the questions coming up, but I would 100%, and we did. We did, and we will continue to do so, right, when they're ready for public viewing. So I think the only thing I want to reiterate is probably what is on the tip of Holly's tongue. This map was created before we even got updates on the sewer trajectories, before option 6 was created, before a lot of these other things were created. So, this is, to your point, a draft, and things have changed since the draft was created, right? So there's just a lot of reviewing that needs to be done of this. I think the point that I'm trying to make is I don't want anyone to get hung up on this map, because this is not an official map. It's an idea of an idea.
It's clear, but I hear a lot of chatter up here defending this map already, from particularly John.
I don't think the board is trying to defend.
Leaving that comment to John.
And I'll let John respond.
Of that he's been the advocate of, we've got to broaden out the work we did on the overlay.
Yeah, I'll let John respond to that. I think my point is that I'm trying to defend the process. We still have a lot to go. This is not done.
I have no disagreement on that.
Okay. Anything else? Do we have anything new in the home rule discussion, or not really?
Nothing new on home rule. Hope to have an update next meeting.
Okay. The trash hauler, I talked to Corey Go, our guy at prosecutor's office. He's gonna look into Genoa's contract. I have a contact with Rumpke, and I'll get that in contact by next meeting, August.
I feel like there's a lot of issues with trash pickup over the last couple of weeks in Harlem from different providers. So I thought that was timely for that to be on. Yeah,
Our guy used to come real early in the morning. We got Rumpke, and now it's like noonish or after. It used to be like clockwork.
Yeah, I saw Waste Management and Rumpke missed pickups this week.
Okay. Anything else, guy?
Any more public comment?
No. Appreciate everybody attending tonight. Anything? One last yes, Belinda?
Belinda, 6060 Mayfair Court. I'm very interested in understanding when you say your next meeting, is that your regular meeting or a special meeting? Because this one was special, and I'm very interested in the home rule, and I'm very interested in the trash discussion.
Okay.
Because those are of interest to me.
So I think
And I saw them in this thing, and so I was like, I'm going.
we're terribly sorry to disappoint you, Belinda. We move to a second meeting every month because we think these things are very important. So I think that the strategic planning conversation will occur in a second meeting, and that is a lot more aligned with home rule, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're setting special meetings specifically for updates with the strategic planning process, just because it is such a lift. When it comes to the home rule conversations, we haven't really gotten anything tactical on that yet. So I would hope that by the next regularly scheduled trustee meeting, we'll have an update. And then if anything else, comes to fruition, we'll add it into the special meetings. Like there's no issue with putting it into both, but we will always have those things in the agenda when it's released prior to the meetings. So everyone will know what we're going to talk about.
So regular meeting next month, home rule and single trash hauler, strategic planning conversation in an additional meeting. This won't be done. The economic chapter will not be done until September. So it could be that we wait until September for that next discussion. Just keep your eye out. If enough happens that we need to talk in August, we will in a second meeting. But then if not, we'll do so in the September timeframe.
But if there's only 7 people in next month's regular meeting, my feelings are going to be hurt. And I'm looking in the back room back there, back row.
It is on August 20th at 7 p.m. And I do want to make a comment, it's okay, about where things are posted for meetings. We had someone that about not, being able to find that information easily. So the ORC has changed where we have to post public notices, which, our regular trustee meetings, are scheduled at the beginning of the year. So we do not post those every time. If we do have a special meeting, they are posted in 3 locations on our website. That includes on the minutes, the calendar, and on the public notice page. I also post it on our Facebook page, on the sign out front, and then we have a little board on the back as you guys came in. It's to your left. Those are also up there. If you guys are having any trouble finding those, you can always call me and I can help direct you to the right place on the website. But I do want you guys to know that I do post them in multiple places. I want everyone to know where everything's at, when we're having things, where we're having things, because we do, you know, like that you guys are filling the room. It's nice to not just talk to each other every time. But yes, I did wanna, it was a concern from the president that it was not, as readily available posted, and I promise I do post them within 24 hours of them being scheduled by the trustees. And that includes BZA and commission meetings also. If they do any specialty meetings, if there are any hearings, that is all posted in those 7 locations.
Praise to the zoning board bodies too. So I mean, anybody that's concerned about anything sneaking through Harlem zoning, you should come to those meetings. We've got some good groups that are watching, keeping the gates on that.
Second Mondays of the month.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no more business, I'd make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:12.
Have a second? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, don't run away. I got neat signatures.
I know.
Good.